In Nichiren Buddhism, one of the points they often make is that we don't get rid of our feelings or our humanness when we realize that we're Buddhas. A Buddha isn't some non-human, transcendental, different thing. And they use the concept of the 10 worlds. It's actually in several different branches of Buddhism, and there are different paintings trying to express how the 10 worlds are simultaneously together in the life of a Buddha. And so just thinking about putting them together, if you just look on Google, they explain the different worlds. Hell is a state of suffering and despair where there's no freedom, the worst case scenario. And it's a ladder up through the first of the lower 6 worlds from hell to heaven. There's hunger, being hungry for money or power or status or something in the world. Then above that, there's animality, where we have some control, but we're also controlled by our instincts. There's the level of anger, where there's an ego and it's full of selfishness and greed. Above that, next step above, they call it humanity or tranquility. And it's just above the anger, the animality, so you can easily slip into that. It's really one of the 6 lower worlds still. Even heaven or rapture is one of the lower 6 worlds. An intense joy, but not happiness. It's the joy that comes from something material in the world. And so these are the 6 lower paths that they talk about, and they're lower paths because they can be changed by external circumstances. And so it's a climb from hell up to heaven, and that's something lots of people pursue. And then there's the higher levels of the 10 worlds. The next level above is learning, starting to read and study and try to seek teaching. Realization is going beyond seeking teaching and sort of putting it to the test and experimenting yourself and understanding. And then there's the final greatest levels of a bodhisattva and a Buddha. Bodhisattva is a Buddha who's come back to help people, and a Buddha is something, the universe. There's plenty of people trying to explain what that is, but that's the highest level. So there are the 10 worlds, and I was thinking you could think of these as concentric circles. So if I think of the lower 4, the things that you don't want to be trapped in, they're the things that you kind of default to if you don't make any effort, things that some people find themselves stuck in. And so the wind pushes you toward that central piece that it's easiest to fall into. Hell, hunger, animality, anger. And just above that, there's humanity. If you press out a little bit, you can maintain a sense of calm, even humanity. Above that, you might achieve the rapture. And then, so those lower 6 worlds, they're kind of like a plate. And everybody's got an individual. Everybody's an individual. Every Buddha is an individual, has an individual. But there's more than that. So there's a plate, and it's on a placemat. And the placemat is learning. It's the beginning of going from that plate out onto the table where the other plates are. It's learning about things outside of just the plate that was served from the kitchen. Beyond that learning is that realization, experimenting, and that's going further from the plate. Well, the plate is still there. It's at the center. I'm an individual, but I'm more than an individual. I'm realizing myself in this, on the greater table that's here to hold us all up, and the table that all of us are from a different perspective. The table is the Bodhisattva and the Buddha. So each of us is like a plate at the dinner table, and the concentric circles of hunger, animality, fear, anger, even rapture are served on our plate by our inherited biology and by our environment, and they're transient states that are decided by the chef in the kitchen. But the plate sits on a placemat, which is learning, with a border of realization, and each of these plates and placemats are individuals. I'm an individual, but I'm more than an individual. from the perspective where there's only one thing, I'm that one thing, and you're that one thing. Each of us is a unique and individual plate at the table. And being a Buddha doesn't take that individuality away from you. It's just that those are provisional identities that are separate, and they're useful by day for work. You do this, I'll do that. But apart from those situations, the perspective of individuality can be misleading or unhelpful. There's a placemat under each plate. And how far we go out into learning is the placemat. Then it's still individual. And going from the placemat onto the one table that we all are sitting on is the stage Buddhists call realization or enlightenment. And then there's the table itself, which is something we all are. It's not we are a Buddha, we're the Buddha. We're the table, even though we're also dishes on the table. We're all that table that's here to hold up all the plates. And then from a more universal perspective, we're all the mansion where the dinner's being served. And it's from that more whole and universal perspective that the I doesn't exist as an individual. It's a perspective from which the swirl of basic animal drives and contingencies on the one particular plate become less relevant, maybe irrelevant. A perspective from which any of us can pass the salt on the table. The dinner table as a whole is something we also all are. And that's the compassion that holds all plates equally and wants only to hold them up. And we're even also the great mansion that this dinner party is held in, and this wholeness, we are all together as one. And it's by lifting our perspectives up regularly into this higher perspective, more transcendent, less individuated, that we escape the suffering that is the swirl of animality on our individual plates. And if we make enough effort to stay on the mountaintop of perspective in the wind that becomes our song of immortality, then the plate falls silent, anger left far behind, yet something we always still, at some perspective, are. So hunger, anger, animality, humanity's tranquility, even rapture, in concentric circles expanding outward to the edge of each plate, until the eating starts and they get all swirled together. The plates are all set at the table, but it's a single table that is the Dharma, the truth that a Buddha is enlightened to, that every Buddha is, the Dharma body of a Buddha. It's beyond their individual plate. The higher worlds are our shared table, learning, realization, bodhisattva, and Buddha. So as a separate individual, I'm a plate at the table. But as a Buddha, I am the table of Dharma. The square table is the Buddha eye. There is a phrase that there are 5 eyes. There's the physical eye that we're looking with. There's the heavenly eye, which is what you use in meditation, or maybe what they see when looking in a telescope. Beyond that, there's the wisdom eye, where it's all empty. Beyond that is the Dharma eye, the law, the form beyond emptiness that penetrates all things. And then the 5th eye is something that you can't say anything about. Stop, say nothing, raise a golden flower. It's the Buddha eye, it's the eye of love. So the table of Dharma is the square eye of an immortal. And there's a phrase that I noticed, there's the 8 difficulties, and it's not exactly about the 8 lower worlds. They really talk about the 6 lower worlds. But I started thinking the 8 difficulties could be the 8 lower worlds that are not Bodhisattva or Buddha. The 8 difficulties are the 8 places where Dharma has obstacles and situations. The dark flow of the undercurrent beneath the sailing ship. The 8 difficult everywhere flow that causes the worldwide turn. The external 8 difficulties that are to be borne by the cause that produces effects in another stage of existence, the Buddha. Although I cannot persuade sadness, but still in the heart of Chi, to cheer. Always keeping a clear heart, the moon shines on the river, roots pure and disinterested. So I found in the Book of Five Talismans scripture, I learned a phrase. It goes from right to left in the diagram on the left, and it's Shen Lun, and it means sinking into obscurity or being ruined, and that's kind of like falling into the central worlds on that plate. And then there's another phrase that could be described by the picture on the right. It's to ascend into the great clarity, flying into immortality by following the practice, becoming a Buddha. So while we're all Buddhas, we all live in the 10 worlds simultaneously. The lower 6 worlds, all governed by external factors, impermanent, transient in nature, beyond our control. And then there are the upper worlds of learning, realization, bodhisattva, and Buddha. The 10 worlds all in the same moment. Our moment is like a mandala, with the lowest world at the center and the easiest thing to fall into, while the effort of the self is to walk outward, to step up the ladder with spiritual practice into the higher life states. There's a phrase, the doing of the self, Wei Shen, or one's own power to accomplish saving, Zi Cheng, to arrive at the outermost circle, the Buddha world, the Buddha mind, the Buddha consciousness, with the lower worlds left behind like a lake of swirling colors. The lower 6 worlds are a lake in the ground, a 6-color swirling lake like a painting palette, a lake we can reach into like a well, the path of a turtle retreating into his shell, but it's a netherworld, and with a simple step from looking down into the netherworld to looking up into the universe, onto the altar of reality, we can still the lake and let it settle in the ditch rather than stirring it up and splashing in it. Looking up at heaven with a passion for leaving the netherworld behind on the shore by the storm, the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, which is a term for the Buddha. It's the Bodhi heart, called the seed, the cloud of no life, no death, jumping the wind drums, the big wish under the dark cliffs with an oath of light, forever the raft on the life and death waves, net of merit fanning the treasure, the Buddha fruit. And there's, in one of the Daoist scriptures, this phrase, thinking of this fundamental root and stem as those central worlds, the lower worlds. The fundamental root and stem is the shape of the cause that produces effects in another stage of existence. Knocking the door, striking the wolf, leading the song of enlightenment, beginning the building of the capital city, requesting and inviting fate to flow like an unceasing river of poetry, the wind of longevity extending time and space. Left behind, fading in the distance, the lake of the 6 lower paths freezes over, the 6 colors lost to a frozen gray. The periodic snowfall no longer melts into the lake to be sucked down into the whirlpool, into the abyss, but now can pile up on the frozen lake on top, while sitting nearby in the indestructible treasure tower, the Buddha continues to ignore the lake until no one can even see where it used to be. The whole forest just covered in mounds of pristine prana, snow, smiling in the classroom, smiling in the hurricane wind, the pool of 6 paints left behind, like the moon not letting the paint swirl, and its haunting visions of separation affect the heartbeat flow in the moment, and its gentle smile in the wind. The shaman, the Buddha, with a mountain stick to keep the forces of momentary circumstance in the Saha world from pushing the heart and mind back down to the center of the mandala, keeps it calm, away from stress, lets it sleep, stretches with yoga, all harmony in the locust swarm, the jade hailstorm that is the modern mundane world, singly focused on peaceful tranquility, calm composure, repose, and contentment. There are two, to expand on this metaphor, there are two lines I found in a famous Chinese poem about immortality. It says, at Dragon Lake, the cauldron has disappeared. In the cinnabar furnace, pearls flow. And depending on my state of mind, if I'm more in the center of that plate, I might just read past this and not understand. But I had some time to think about it, maybe on the learning or the realization phase of a Buddha's mind. And I was thinking, so I know that I've read, the sage saves the universe by saving the universe inside himself. For the Buddha immortal, the universe is the lake. The whole universe is the lake. The outer ring of the mandala, that is the Buddha, is the dragon, and the lake is his home. It's his to take care of, to cultivate, to relieve from suffering into truth. It's to become the happiness beyond birth and death. Ascending to the perspective of immortality, the physical universe becomes Dragon Lake, and the Saha world that was a cauldron of suffering is transformed by the simple change of perspective into the cinnabar furnace. Cinnabar being the traditional Daoist elixir of immortality. So the entire universe and its calendar are an opportunity to be grateful for. The furnace where immortality is brewed. Without the inner 9 circles, there wouldn't be a 10th. The Buddha, the outer circle would just be a donut. The Buddha's more than a donut. There's the center. There are 9 inner worlds his to take care of. So the outer circle of Buddha, pearls flow from that phrase, is a part of the phrase, pearls flow, jade moves on. It's figurative for water under the bridge. The jade is the universe, the pearls are the stars. Their movement is the yin of heaven. The phase encouraging us to just let it happen, not to add to it, not to worry about it. No suffering, only pearls flowing in eternity. The tree of life is the crown on the altar of reality, and we all contribute to the flourishing of that tree, no matter which one of the 10 worlds we find ourselves in. It could be the thin roots that go out into the soil of the real, and above the leaves cover the branches, and that's our life in the world. Working, taking care of ourselves, tending to our garden in time, all contributing to the leaves on the tree of life, and the thin roots below in the real. And then there are the deeper roots of spiritual practice, penetrating deep beyond the soil of the real to the underground river of immortality, to the divine, into eternity, and offering the tree another kind of nourishment that the soil of the real could never really provide. And corresponding to those deeper roots, high up in the tree of life, it is as a result of the nourishment from these deep tap roots that the flowers of joy and the fruits of prayer, of compassion, happiness grow. And those are the peaches of immortality. So, as a Buddha, we rise up on the light, our eyes at the top looking into the temple of time. Rising up on the light, from the Buddha's outpouring love, each of us flower into the eye of the Buddha as we walk up the ladder in flames into an even brighter flame. And the flower that we are is a blessing that surrounds the onrushing temple of time that flows through our center like a beam. The universe is a star. The universe is such a flower.